Hey Amarillo, I'm Jason Boyette, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. This episode is supported by Amarillo Angels, an organization you've heard guests mention and recommend several times on this show. The Amarillo Angels team told me that 33% of youth who age out of foster care have been in 3 or more placements. That's a lot of change and instability. But imagine a world where every child experiencing foster care feels supported, seen, and loved. At Amarillo Angels, that's what they do. They're making that a reality through volunteer-driven programs. And with the Panhandle Gives just around the corner, there's no better time to join in. Starting November 25th, your donations can have an even greater impact. So visit amarilloangels.org to learn more and see how your gift during the Panhandle Gives can change lives in this community. That's amarilloangels.org. Today's guest is Ruthie Landelius. Ruthie is a chef and high-end caterer who operates Black Fig Food. She spent the past 2 decades working as a personal and private chef. She's taught cooking classes. She's our food columnist for Brick & Ale magazine and Flavorillo, our email food and drink newsletter. And if you've been to a big event over the past couple of years, from bank openings to Panhandle PBS's Savor the Goods events, to Hoodoo Mural Festival, you've probably encountered food catered by Ruthie. More than anything, I think she's an artist, and she views food as her primary medium. For someone like her, food isn't just fuel, and meals aren't just collections of steps and ingredients. And I wanted to know why and how she got to this point. So here's Ruthie Landelius. Ruthie Landelius, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. I am thrilled to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. We've known each other for several years, and I'm excited to talk to you in this format. So I want to start with you the same way I start with all my guests, and that's just to ask you why you're here. So what brought you to Amarillo in this area in the first place?
I've been here all my life. I was actually born in Lubbock, and then my parents, I'm the youngest of 5, okay? So my parents decided to up and move everybody to Amarillo after there was a huge tornado. I believe it was in 70 or 71. I can't remember.
Early 70s.
Yes.
Because I was born in Lubbock, and it was just a few years after that.
Okay, yeah. And they thought moving here would make them safe.
Yeah, they just went deeper into Tornado Alley,
and so, that's why they decided to come to Amarillo. And this is all I've known. I was an infant and been here all my life.
Okay, where'd you go to school?
Elementary through.
Mm-hmm,
okay.
Yeah.
We started in Olson Park over off of Bell.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was supposed to go to Crockett, like my siblings got to go to it there. And they changed the zoning last minute, and I was thrown to Sam Houston, and I was terrified because I had it in my head, I was going to get my butt kicked every day. Mm-hmm. I know, isn't that terrible? But that ended up being some of the best years of my schooling life. I had such a blast and met some of the best people that I'm still friends with to this day.
I remember that. I had a lot of friends from Crockett who the dividing line was split right down the middle, and some went to Amarillo High, some went to Tascosa, and it's a weird thing that happens. I think
it's traumatic.
I think Fannin has some split like that.
Yeah.
A few kids in Fannin go to Amarillo High, and some go to Caprock. So it's strange how that works.
Exactly, and so I finished off at Tascosa.
Okay,
graduated, and I'm not ashamed to say the year. It is what it is. It was 89.
All right, a lot of things happened that year. It's an interesting year
I'm aging myself is what I'm saying.
Did you know what you wanted to do career-wise once you got to that point? Like, was college on your radar? Did you have a plan?
It was, and it was so crazy. Let's just start by saying I think I knew I would end up in some sort of food career, culinary career, when I was a kid. But I didn't know that until years and years and years later. Right out of high school, I had a dream to go to optometry school. But of course, I had to get my 4 years out of the way. And that was my plan. I was going to beeline it to optometry school and be successful in that area. And something just happened along the way. And what it was is I couldn't pass physics.
You're probably not alone in that.
Let me just tell you, I was already on a bad path to that, because when class started, they had run out of the books at the bookstore.
Okay.
So I was behind. So I just bombed that class completely. And I thought, you know what? Who am I kidding? I am not a left brain person. I'm a right brain person. So I switched my major to art and went to Amarillo College, moved on to getting married, starting having children. And I didn't really have a plan to go into the food industry. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I had already had my third child, my final child. And
so the kids arrived pretty early.
They were
then.
young. Yeah, they were really young. And a stay-at-home mom, I was a creative person. As a child, I was always in my room drawing and coloring and doing lots of things that were creative, feeding my creativity. And it was also an escape for me for, kind of a difficult upbringing. But at that time, I thought, I'm just going to start cooking for my friends, having them over for dinner. And that's what we would do on weekends. And one day, one of them said, why don't you cook for people for a living? This is really good. And I asked them, what do you mean? What do you mean? I didn't know that was a thing. I mean, aside from working at a restaurant, but They brought up the whole personal chef service that they had heard about coming out of Dallas, So I Googled it and, didn't Google it because Google wasn't around then, but I did some research and...
Went to a library?
Yes.
Checked out some books?
Microfished it out. No, I'm just kidding. Contacted an organization that was for personal private chefs. It was an association and kind of did some training through them and started there. I started picking up clients, and they were typically elderly who were possibly going through chemo, things like that, and needed someone to come in and help them with their diet. And granted, I was not a nutritionist, dietitian, so I needed, guidance in what to feed them. But it started there, and then it just word of mouth basically made it happen. And then those clients were like, hey, my daughter's getting married next year. Would you like to cater it? And I thought, I don't know anything about catering. There's no way. I have a really hard time telling people no.
Yeah.
So I would do it, and I ended up just falling madly in love with it. But it's something that really, thinking back, like when I was a child, like I said before, I would retreat to my room. I spent a lot of alone time. That is what was comfortable for me. And I was a huge Barbie fan. Okay. So like I was always playing with my Barbies. I had a huge village. It was like Wisteria Lane. Okay. I don't know if you've ever seen Desperate Housewives.
Yeah. I get the reference.
And before I'd go to kindergarten, I went half a day. My mom would take me in the afternoon. So about 11 o'clock, she'd start watching Young and the Restless on TV. And I would watch it. I don't think that was something that, a kid my age should have been watching, but I would act that stuff out with my Barbies, and they would have dinner parties and affairs and all kinds of things. It was hilarious, but I would find myself making a meal for my Barbies for their dinner party. I would shape the food out of clay.
Wow.
We're talking peas and pearl onions. That's
a real commitment.
Vegetables. Oh yeah. I would make little wine bottles and put foil on the top for champagne bottles. So yeah, it just made me think, wow, I've always wanted to play around with food. And growing up, we really didn't, we were not the wealthiest of people. We were probably lower to middle class. So a lot of our meals were beans and rice, pork chops, things like that every night. Very brown and very dull.
Yeah.
And I remember always wanting to see some color on my plate. And I would ask my mom, hey, what do you have? Do we have anything green? Can we have a salad? And
almost from an artistic perspective,
this is
like
me
you
as a
wanted
child.
More
yes,
colors.
I wanted colors. I was looking at the food as color because it was color that made me happy.
Yeah.
And how ironic is it that I always wear black? I don't ever wear color.
A lot of creatives also do that. Like, did you have experience in the kitchen? Like, did you help
it's
prepare
another thing.
meals or anything?
They always kicked me out, and I would sneak in and try to look, because my mom would make fresh tortillas every single day, and I wanted to learn. But they were like, you're in the way, kid, get out of the kitchen. So I never got the opportunity to learn anything from her or my dad. He was a cook as well. And so I don't know where it stemmed from. I think it was just me diving in. And like I said before, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have Pinterest and, looking up recipes and things like that. We had magazines. And the thing about it was, here's the story. I don't tell it much. Right after I got married to my first husband, I wanted to try to make some French onion soup because I really love French. Gardsky's Loft had the best. I don't know if you remember Gardsky's Loft, but
I remember Gardsky's. I don't think I ever had the French onion soup.
Oh, it was
there.
delicious. I think they were known for it. So I took a stab at it, and it was the worst thing I'd ever made. I don't know what went wrong, but it really upset me. We put the bowls out on the back porch, forgot they were there. They festered for 3 months. Wow. We ended up just throwing the bowls away. It made me pretty angry that I couldn't do it. So that was the catalyst to my buying magazines, cooking magazines. We're talking Cooking Light. And I just straight up wanted to teach myself how to cook. And that's really what I tell some of my students. That's where you start, learn how to read a recipe. And then when you get comfortable with that, then you find yourself deviating from that. And if you say, oh, this recipe didn't turn out the way I wanted, it kind of stunk, then you make it better. That's how you learn. And that's exactly what I did. I don't guess I ever wanted to go to culinary school. I didn't think about that until I was in my late 30s. Mm-hmm. I had applied. I was going to go to, at the time, it was the Art Institute of Dallas. I'm not sure it's still open, but I was enrolled. I was going to go. And I ended up not going because I got busy with work. With
too much
work, catering.
Food prep.
Exactly. So I didn't get to go, but I pretty much am self-taught. Like, I've worked in kitchens. I've worked as a personal chef for several years. I started catering, I'd say that around 2012, 2013. Mm-hmm. And then I met a really sweet couple who offered me a full-time job to just be their private chef. Now, the difference between personal and private is personal, you cook for many families. Mm-hmm. Private, you're just with one family. You're exclusive. And I was exclusively their cook. So I got to travel with them back and forth from here to Georgia, and I would be gone weeks at a time. And I learned so much with that job, but it was hard for me to be away from my kids and my family. It took a toll on me mentally. So I made a really hard decision and quit that job. It was hard for me to walk away from them because they're wonderful people, and I miss them dearly, mm-hmm. but it was the best thing for me at that moment. So I came back to Amarillo in 2021, and I was terrified because I had nothing else, no other tricks in my bag but cooking. I was hoping that my clients from before would remember me, and they did. Some of them reached out. They were, yay. They sent me a text. I'm so glad you're back. Hey, can you come and, do this party for us or that party? And it was just like I had never left. I picked up where I left off, and I wasn't worried. In the end, I wasn't worried. It all just worked out. But
I want to give listeners a scope of what you do now as a caterer. Like the kinds of events, mm-hmm. the size of events, mm-hmm. Maybe where you specialized compared to, let's get Dyer's Barbecue, mm-hmm. to cater this kind of event for us. So tell me what that looks like now.
Well, right now I have several offerings. The first part of the week, I cook for several families. That's the personal chef service mm-hmm. that I provide. And it's basically, I shoot them a menu every week. They choose what they want off that menu. I prepare it, package it. I either deliver it to them or they come pick it up. And those are for busy individuals who are, successful people who don't have time to cook for themselves, right. and they just want to come home and relax after work. So that's the first part of the week. And then we free up. And when I say we, I've just hired a full-time employee. So Eric has been really great. He's been wonderful. We focus on our caters that we have scheduled. And right now we're in our busy season. Mm-hmm. Now, what that looks like, oh, absolutely. What that could look like is anywhere from, a private dinner party, anywhere from 4 people to 50 people, to events, nonprofit fundraisers, things like that are at the Civic Center, up to 500 people. Yeah. So it's across the board. Like I've also done cooking classes. Those are a lot of fun when you want to get together with girlfriends, get together, like on a Saturday afternoon and learn how to make something really cool. I do that as well. And I was just working on creating an online space where people could learn about mindful cooking.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I was focusing on when I was working in Georgia because I had time.
Yeah.
Okay. And
you had like
I had a membership.
A blog, and
I do have a cooking blog, but it's not something that I can contribute to very often because again, I'm just crazy busy. I think I've got my hands in so many things and not complaining. I love them all. Keeps me busy and keeps me out of trouble.
Tell me about your style.
My style? My cooking style?
Yeah. What do you, when people decide we want to use Black Fig Catering, is that what you call it still?
Black Fig? Yeah, Black Fig Catering.
Like, why would they choose you compared to a lot of the other types of caterers you might find in Amarillo?
I see what you mean. Well, I don't know if I could answer that, but they could, if that makes any sense. I do try to not necessarily stand out from everyone, but have offerings that are different from everyone else. Not to say I'm, up here and there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Okay, so because I have finally been okay with identifying as an artist. Mm-hmm. I mean, I went to school for art. I got a degree in fine art in 2014. I thought, I am an artist. I use the plate as my canvas, and I create art on a plate with the food I choose to. It's all about presentation. It's really the only art that I can use all of my senses. And I'm a very impatient person. I don't like waiting for paint to dry, but hey, I get some food on a plate from like 30 minutes.
Well, maybe it's better for me to describe it. Like, I would say that you do have a more visually interesting approach to food. I think the meals that you prepare are a little more elevated in a place where you might go to a catered event and it's barbecue or it's
thank you.
Tex-Mex or something like that. Let's just feed a whole bunch of people
Yes.
with a big pot of meat. That yours is a little more thoughtful and, I don't know, visually, artistically different than what you might see.
Yeah, let me touch
And there's
on
a lot
that
more
little bit.
vegetables. I mean, there's a lot more color.
I will say, okay, so now you're helping me figure this out right now. When people want barbecue or if they want Mexican food, I send them to those people who like Tyler's or, Fiesta, La Fiesta, because they're good at doing that. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's great grandmother wants to make the Mexican food for a wedding reception, I'll say, I'm not going to try to outdo your grandmother. I'm sorry. Right. I'm just not going to do it.
You'll never win that competition.
Exactly. So I'm here to provide something different. And yes, a lot of my hors d'oeuvres are different, and I try to incorporate in every single one a sweet and salty, a crunchy, creamy in one bite. And that's my formula, and that almost always wins anybody over who doesn't necessarily like olive tapenade or crab cakes or something. There's all four of those elements are always there, and it just they like it. They like it. And I also feel like I bring something else to the table that caters to people with special dietary needs. And there's a lot of restaurants and caterers and bakeries here that cater to gluten-free people, but I can do vegan options. I can do vegetarian options, plant-based. It's just, I love learning. And if people still ask me to do things that I've never done before, and I tell them, sure, I can do that, and I have no idea how I'm going to pull it off, but I learn from it, and it always works out. I do the research, I figure it out, and that's something I'm always going to be doing is learning. I don't know everything there is to know about cooking. I'm constantly learning. That's what I love about it.
I'm always interested in the logistics of catering, especially somebody like you. Like you come from a background of being a personal chef where you're cooking a meal for one or two people. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly you have to prepare a meal for 500 people. Yeah. And the ramping up of ingredients and process and
stress,
time.
And stress.
Yes.
And stress.
I can't think my way around that. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about like what that looks like. I mean, let's say you've got an event Saturday night, a few days away for 500 people.
How about we talk about what happened last week or last 2 weeks?
Tell me.
Walk you through it.
Give me an idea of how that works and how it happens.
It's difficult sometimes because I do want to please every single client that comes my way, and sometimes when the event is so large, it's hard to give them the bells and whistles that they're used to seeing in my Instagram pictures and things like that. So sometimes we have to scale back on that. But let's start with, let's say, Hoodoo. I was fortunate to cater the VIP for Hoodoo. That was for 500. And that takes several days to prepare for, because you've got so many different sauces and things that can be made ahead of time. And then, and then we're talking, that was on a Saturday. I think we had something going on Sunday night too. It was a small thing. But then Tuesday came around and we had another event for 500 more people at the Civic Center. But that was a buffet. And then the next night was another big event for 150 people. And then that following, Thursday we had a day off to clean out everything and go shopping for the next event, which was on Saturday, which was 2 jobs. We both had to do 2 jobs at the same time, and they were big ones. I mean, it just, sometimes weeks are just packed like that. And I have to cancel my personal chef clients so that I can do my catering job 100%. But it gets crazy. It gets crazy. Some nights I'll wake up in the morning and think, did I leave that out to thaw? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Or, I don't sleep well.
Well, it feels like it's got a domino quality.
But like, what's crazy? I'm addicted to it. It gives me a natural high of, the stress. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I probably need to go to therapy twice a week instead of once. But it's the high that artists chase. Just the excitement of being confronted with a challenge and knocking it out of the park as best you can.
Is there a type of event that maybe you like the best, whether it's, for a nonprofit or, a banquet sort of setting or something like that? Is there something that is most appealing to you that if you could choose, like you would always do this kind of thing?
I can't choose. I
like the diversity and the variety.
I enjoy all of them. Yeah. And it's the same with my business. There's not one week that's the same as the previous or the next. I don't really typically like to live Groundhog Day. So every job is super cool to me. And all I care about is making my client happy, making tummies happy, just giving them a good experience. That's all that matters to me. But if I were to really have to choose, I would say the ones that are the most fun and intimate are the private dinner parties because I get to go out there and talk to the guests. They ask questions. They challenge me.
Do you cook on site? Like you go to and use their kitchen?
Oh yeah. And sometimes they're in the kitchen with me. They want to talk. They want to help. It's just like a small community of people who have a meal together and enjoying the whole idea of food. I say this all the time. It's the universal language we all speak. Everybody understands or you and I could speak 2 different languages, but if we shared a meal right now together, we would be able to communicate through food. So it's a beautiful thing, and I love that it's what brings people together all over the world.
One of the things that I've always thought was interesting about catering and maybe your personal chef activity is that, when you are preparing meals, so much of the process is just having everything in place, knowing where everything is. But when you cater, like you end up in different places, you're in different kitchens, maybe you're in somebody's house that's unfamiliar. How do you do that? I can't imagine it's all happening in your home. So are you able to have access to a commercial kitchen so you can do a lot of that kind of?
I do rent a commercial kitchen from, I'm out of Westminster Presbyterian Church across from Austin Middle School. And it's perfect because it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from my house. Do we forget things? Absolutely. Yeah. I have driven all the way out to Polidora Canyon and forgot the desserts. Like it happens. And that's on me because I'm still trying to get my systems and processes in place, have lists ready to go for each job. And I mean, all the way down to packing trash bags, wipes, paper towels, gloves, sternos, strikers. I mean, it's
all
lot of things.
All the food adjacent things.
It's a lot of things to remember. And a lot of times we forget. We have to go back and get stuff. A lot of times we have to rummage through our clients' drawers and cabinets and borrow things. And they don't ever mind. I mean, it is what it is. It's a lot of work. It's crazy. You have to be a crazy person to do what I do. But I love it.
Tell me what you've learned about let's call it the food culture in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that likely in your caters or in your personal stuff, you're maybe pushing boundaries a little bit, or you're trying to introduce new things, new flavors. Or is that accurate?
I think I do inadvertently.
Okay.
But my direction I take is I love to celebrate culture and whatever that may look like. And that means combining different cuisines together, which is fusion cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my offerings on my hors d'oeuvres list are fusion items. They might have elements of Asian mixed with Mexican,
mm-hmm.
or Spanish mixed with Middle Eastern. And it's just, that's fun for me. It's me, gosh, how can I say this without sounding like a egotistical, but like in anything anyone does, we eventually get really good at it. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just repetition.
So yeah,
10,000
repetition,
hours.
it's making things better, and I enjoy breaking the rules that I have learned. So in the process of learning how to cook, you can't just go in and start breaking rules, because you got to understand them first. So with me, a lot of my stuff may not even make sense, but I want it to look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I want there to be contrast. I want there to be variation in textures and flavors. And I want to celebrate more than one cuisine within one bite.
I think what's behind that question is, from the outside, someone might think, oh, Texas Panhandle, that's
mm-hmm.
a steak and potatoes
mm-hmm.
kind of town, hamburgers and French fries. Nobody's going to want any of those fancy vegetables that you put on their plates. And if that is maybe something that's in mind when you have an event mm-hmm. where you think, I'm going to take something that maybe they think they want, and I'm going to expand their culinary horizons.
That's exactly
a little bit.
Why I do it. There, like I said before, a lot of people, they've come up to me at a MOA, at some of the opening
mm-hmm.
shows. I don't really like olives, but my gosh, that was delicious. What is in it? Olives.
Yeah.
Well, my gosh, I've never, and they just go on and on. That's my whole goal, is to open up people's minds and palates to new things, to try new things. And granted, I will do, barbecue sliders or whatever. If that's what my client wants, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to sneak in a little bit of black fig in there to make it, something interesting. I try to put my little spin on every little thing, even if it's just mac and cheese, So, but it's fun. It's my opportunity to create my art through food. Some days I don't even feel like I'm working. I'm very fortunate to have chosen this line of work, because I just get to play. I get to play.
I always like to take the opportunity to educate listeners. And one thing I want to hear from you is maybe the perspective I don't understand from somebody in the service industry. When you are in a position of providing food, it's not necessarily a restaurant setting, but it's where you're the caterer. And so if it's a big event, maybe you're a little bit invisible. And how do you like to be treated? What do people who go to an event, what do you want them to know about, like, the effort you put into it, or the thought you put into it, or the team that you hire to pull this off, that we may not understand?
Wow, that's a deep question. As you were asking me that, I was thinking to myself, I don't think about that. All I care about is them being happy with what they're experiencing. Mm-hmm. I'm not worried about what I need from them.
Okay.
Granted, there are times when I'm working an event and I have, the wait staff I've hired. I've got other people behind me that we're all working together. More times than not, the guests, they don't typically come up to me and say, oh my gosh, that was fabulous. It was wonderful. They go to everybody else that's working.
Okay.
And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because I'm female or I'm short. I don't look, you don't
wear a special hat that says you're the one in charge?
I'm the only one in the white executive chef coat.
So we should look for that.
Still doesn't do anything. And I'm okay with it. It just makes me laugh. It kind of makes me chuckle. And And, they go to them, they ask questions, and I have to walk over there and I tell them right away when they're asking, what am I eating here? What is this? It's delicious. And I have to interject and say, oh, are you the one? I was like, yeah, that was me. So I come across that a lot, but I'm not really asking for anything or expecting anything from the guests. I just want to make sure they're enjoying it. I look at their faces when they eat. I'm hiding behind, the curtain, watching their faces, and that's all I care about, is just making them happy.
Do you ever do weddings?
Yes, all
big
the
events
time.
like that? Like, is there? Those are notoriously high stress.
Not always.
Okay.
Not always. I'm going to tell you right now, it seems, as of late, the smaller ones are the most stressful ones.
Really?
And I cannot tell you why. I have no idea.
Is there
I have no
an
idea.
intimacy to it that
I don't
makes
know.
it...
Sometimes it's a lot easier to cook for 200 people than it is to cook for 30. And getting it out there and setting it up, especially if it's out in the middle of nowhere where you have no running water. No, you have to bring everything that you need. And those are challenging. They're challenging. And then you have to keep your cool. Everybody has to keep their cool. Or it just goes to, crap.
Are you surprised where you've ended up? Like that?
Oh my gosh!
Are you surprised that you're still in Amarillo, or that
no.
you're doing this as a career?
I'm not surprised. When I was a kid, I wanted to grow up and be a rock star. I come from a family of musicians.
You've done some music, though.
I've done some music. I used to play a long time ago, and then I picked it back up recently. I don't know. I don't think yes, I'm happy where I am, but I never saw it coming, and I'm just doing my thing a lot. And people ask me a lot. Some of the questions I've been asked, because I've done some really cool things for Panhandle PBS, and Karen from there has asked me.
Savor the goods.
Yeah, she asked me one day. It just really threw me. Like, I needed a moment to answer. I couldn't answer. She asked me, what does success mean to you, or what does it look like to you, for you? I couldn't answer it because I don't think about success. I don't think about being successful. I even have a hard time saying that I am now. I've got those horse blinders on. I've got my head down, and I'm trying to get a job done. And some days I forget to eat because I'm so busy.
Right.
I don't look up and see everything I've accomplished. I don't get to do that very often, but I have lately. And I'd say I'm pretty proud of myself, not just the culinary world, but just being a mom, a single mom, and all the things I have accomplished over the last, I'd say 15, 20 years. It's pretty awesome. And I've got great kids. I've got a great family. I've got a wonderful support system in my friends and family. I'm just trucking along. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. What was the question? Like, I mean... I'm happy where I am, but I don't think I ever thought I would be where I am.
Okay.
If that makes any sense at all.
Let's put it this way. You're someone who, based on your self-description, would fall into the category of like a culinary artist. You see it as an art. You see it as creating art with food. And you're catering huge events. A lot of people would hear that description and think, oh, well, she must work in Austin or Dallas or someplace like that, Denver. But you're doing it in Amarillo. And I wonder if that feels like a surprise culturally, or if that makes sense to you, because there is this undercurrent of creativity in Amarillo.
Again, it's just me doing what I envision, what I've wanted to do. I wanted to do this. This was part of my, when I was finishing up my bachelor's degree at WT, food was part of my BFA show and all the drawings I did. I just knew that I wanted to incorporate food into whatever it was I was going to do after I graduated. And that's what I want to provide to my clients. It's just a wow factor, I guess you could say. And not to say that other caterers and other restaurants aren't giving that to their clients. They are. I just want to show them who I am and give them a little different, I don't know. You've got me speechless over here, Jason. Like, I've never had my brain picked like this before, and it's awesome. But I'm just doing what I enjoy doing. It's the artist creating art and some people are going to love it. Some people aren't. Some people are going to get it. Some people aren't.
Some people just want their hamburger, right?
That's right. That's right. And it's funny. I when I was going to WT, I wanted to go into like the art history, you know, with Amy, Dr. V. Shout out to Dr. V. And I read a book called 7 Days in the Art World. And it kind of turned me off to wanting to do that, be in the curating area, museums and all that. And it is just, being an artist, I would much rather create than to do research or to be that person that says, hey, this is good art or that's bad art.
Right.
And it's in my own opinion, it's just opinions. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. It's so subjective.
It is very subjective. And I just didn't want any part of that. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna stay on this side and be the creative, create art in the manner that I choose to. People are gonna love it. Great. If they're not, that's great too. They can go down the street to, you know, somebody else. Because we're not all for everybody.
Right.
You know? And we also open people's minds often. So
well, and as a caterer, though,
that's my plan, is to just take over everybody's minds with good food.
I guess that's the thing that is still, still rattling around in my brain, is that you are a caterer and you want people to love what you create. You want them to think it's delicious or interesting, or
I want it to be an experience for them. I want it to be, I mean, it's so much more than just meat on a skewer or whatever, or a stuffed mushroom. It's like a mini installation that they can interact with. And I mean, through taste, feel, all that. It is art. And that's how I try to present it. To me, that's like a little art show on the table.
This episode is supported by Brick & Elm Magazine and the first ever Brickley Awards. This awards program is brand new for Amarillo and Canyon. We want to acknowledge community excellence, business achievement, and personal accomplishments in categories that truly matter to local residents in our community. Awards like Volunteer of the Year, Innovator of the Year, Nonprofit of the Year, and Entrepreneur of the Year. This isn't a social media vote. It's not a popularity contest. We want to recognize local organizations and individuals that deserve attention. And we want to do it based on your nominations. And then after we receive your nominations, our committee of local leaders will evaluate all those nominees and choose the winners. And our plan is to announce winners in our January-February 2025 issue. It's our next issue coming up. And then celebrate them at an awards ceremony in February. I'm really excited about this program. I hope it will be really meaningful to the community year after year. So here's what I need from you. Please nominate somebody. We want to hear from you about the people you think deserve to be recognized. You can go do it at brickandelm.com. Look for the Brickley Awards link at the top of the page and submit some nominations. Okay, I'm back with Ruthie Landelius. Ruthie, this is the part of the show I call 8 Straight. 8 Straight is sponsored every week by Panhandle Plains Historical Museum in Canyon. It's the largest history museum in Texas, and I picked this fact for you. Its collection includes a chuck wagon that dates back to around 1900 and was used on the Reynolds Ranch. And the founder of that ranch, William T. Reynolds, helped Charles Goodnight and Oliver Loving drive cattle to Colorado in 1867, and then he founded his own cattle company the next year. So you can see that and learn more at panhandleplains.org. I imagine a chuck wagon was a little bit more difficult for cooking for cowboys than...
I'd be terrified to do that today.
It's all cast iron and wood, open fire. Okay, first question. When you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
I feel like Amarillo is already kind of growing in a direction of just the art scene and the creative people. It still feels a little underground, but I would love to see that grow exponentially, in 10 years, and really have this place become a mecca of the arts. Again, I feel like it's happening now, but probably a little too slow for my taste.
Yeah. I feel like it is happening, especially in like large community gatherings. Like we've got Hoodoo, we've got stuff at Arts in the Sunset, we've got big events like that bring people together, built around art, and that feels significant.
Right. I would just love to see that continue to grow higher and higher.
Okay, other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
Oh, I'm afraid to say this, but I've got to say it. I'm gonna say chain restaurants. I feel like
Yeah.
there's too many. I'm a big supporter of using local, dining local. It's what keeps the city, keep the money here, and it's also nice to get money from outside and bring it into the city.
Yeah.
However, these mom and pop places, this is a job. It's a hard job. Very difficult to keep a restaurant open, and it's their dream. So I always like to support local restaurants. I just feel like we have too many chain places.
Yeah, I agree. I understand why we have so many, but I-40 is really attractive to some of those restaurants.
Yeah, and there's a time and place to go. I mean, you're going to see me bellied up at one of these places at some point. Yeah, you don't have to call me out on that. It happens. Sometimes I get outvoted. So, but yeah.
No, I agree. And I do like that people really do support local restaurants. I hear that all the time. What does this area not have enough of?
I'm going to say we need more fun activities. And specifically, how about we get somebody to open up a silent disco place? Because I did go to one in Colorado Springs and I had a really good time. Really good time.
I think
they had it at Hoodoo.
Yeah, it's been a part of Hoodoo almost from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been introduced well enough to people that they get it.
Yeah.
And so going to an event that is just the silent disco part.
It would be crazy.
I think we're ready for it.
Yeah. The one we went to was, of course, we were the oldest people in the room, but how about we do like an 80s night? We walked in, they give you the headphones. They've got different colors on them, red, blue, or green. And then they had 3 DJs on the stage who were red, blue, and green. So you could see what everyone was listening to. If the whole crowd turned to red, you'd know, oh, this must be the jam.
Yeah.
Let's switch over. And then everybody would dance together. It was just a really cool environment. And of course, there was a bar. It was a 21 and over situation. But I had such a good time. And I thought, man, if Amarillo could get something like this, it would be super sweet.
I think so. And having been involved with Hoodoo, like that's one of the things I hear most often from people. They're like, that silent disco thing was really interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know.
Okay.
I'm so
Let's do
simple.
Okay. What's your favorite local neighborhood?
I really love 6th Street. It's got a lot of places that I frequent. Most of my friends that I have now, I met them all at the 806.
Okay. I
walked in there one day and thought, wow, this is a really cool place. I don't feel like I'm in Amarillo. Not that I wished to be elsewhere, but I was having a bad day that day, I think. Walked in, grabbed a coffee, and just started meeting people. I mean, literally, it happened that quickly. And I've had some really strong friendships built out of that place. There's also, High Fidelity next door. I get my hair cut down the street at Kismet. There's a really good bakery over there, Blue Crane. It feels right. It feels right. It's almost catered to, I use the word catering, isn't that funny? To us weird people in town, know? And I mean that. I mean that in a loving way.
It's got a little bit of a countercultural vibe.
Yes. And I just absolutely love it. The Braceros, are you kidding me? It's the best. Antiques, bookstore, and curiosities. It's all just fabulous.
Okay. This is a new question, and I picked this one for you. What's your favorite local place to shop for food or groceries? My
very favorite place. Oh my gosh. I do enjoy going to farmers markets during the season because that's just, fresh as best. But a lot of times with my clients and my work, I have to acquire
large amounts of things.
Large amounts of things. I also have to acquire things that are grass-fed beef, organic things.
So very specialized.
Yes. So I do travel out to natural grocers a lot. Natty G's, what we call it. I'm close to Market Street. I'll go there. And for the larger food orders, I typically order from Benny Keith. And they have a lot of specialty items too that I have to order way in advance, like 2 weeks ahead, and it'll get in. But very seldom I have to order online unless it's something like super crazy. Okay. Do you ever go to any of the small ethnic grocery stores?
Oh, absolutely. Like where you need something that's very specific.
Yeah,
you can't get at Benny Keith's.
Middle Eastern stores. We go in there. I get green raisins there. I buy my basmati rice there. Sea Market over there on 34th in Georgia. I go in there and see Naomi, and she hooks me up.
Former podcast guest, Naomi Vang.
Yeah.
What's the most underrated aspect of living in the Panhandle?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny because whenever people I meet outside of the area find out I live in the Panhandle, they're like, "Oh dear gosh, what's up there? Just vast nothingness."
Picking sand out of your catered foods.
Exactly. But no, I feel like it's there's community. There's community. And I have several friends who years ago might have said, "Oh, this town's horrible. There's nothing here for me. I'm leaving." But oftentimes they come back, and it's not because they failed elsewhere, but it's because they have roots here, roots, familial roots, or the community of friends that they've built. But it's almost like a sitcom setting. And I hate to bring up Desperate Housewives again, but you've got these clusters of friend groups that just pop up everywhere, and we all know each other, but we have a good time together. And it's community within those groups that I've noticed working in the job I work. I've gotten to know a lot of really cool people. Do they all hang out together? Absolutely not. But they're in their own right, awesome individuals. So I feel like our little town of Amarillo, some people would say, it's underrated. I think it's pretty awesome.
Okay, this may be a hard one for you to answer because I know you do a lot of nonprofit caters, but what's your favorite local nonprofit?
I really love Martha's Home. Okay. And I have a personal connection to that. My late sister, way back when I was in high school, she was in an abusive relationship and needed help, and they were there for her at the time. She had a young son. She was single. She had to get out of a situation she was in, so they took her in. And I love the fact that they're there for women who were going through hard times and trying to get back on their feet. They help them and support with them empowering, achieve a lifestyle of self-sufficiency when they're ready to graduate from there and find a place to live with their child or children. So I really love that organization is around. And even when I have lots of leftovers from big caters, I call them. If the client doesn't want the leftovers, I call them. It could be 12:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. They answer the phone. I will take those leftovers to them so that they can have, so it doesn't ever go to waste.
Good.
Yeah.
It's good to know. Okay, last question. When was the last time you visited Paladuro Canyon?
When's the last time I didn't? With all these weddings,
I was going to say, you go out there for work a lot.
I do, and not for pleasure. It's always for business. I have a lot of weddings that I cater out there at the Mac Dick Pavilion. There's also another place right before you go down into the canyon. It's the Paladuro Canyon Jeep Tours, I believe. There's Dove Rest Cabins. That's a very popular scenery for weddings and receptions. So I'm always out there. And I love it.
Yeah, but not necessarily in a way where you can appreciate it because you're running.
We appreciate it. We do. We after we serve, we go outside, and if the sun is still up, we will go out there and take pictures of the view and just kind of relax before we have to clean up the chaos.
Yeah, I can imagine that you're dealing with the elements, heat,
Yeah.
wind, bugs, things like
right.
that might get in the way of
Right.
the glorious nature out there. Okay, that concludes the 8 straight questions. Ruthie, I like to close by asking my guests to endorse something. So what's one thing you would like listeners to know about or to experience?
I got to give a shout out to Angela from Antiques Bookstore.
She's also been on the
Curiosities.
podcast.
I am a fan. We go way back. We went to high school together.
Oh, did you really?
Seeing her open up a store like that is just, it warms my heart because she is such a giving person. She has created a space for lots of different people to go and share their talents, whether it be reading poetry or playing music, or she'll have open mic nights and things like that, and just a space for creatives to gather and just be, like I said, a community of sorts. And she's such a supportive person. Her and Angelina and Jolene, Amy, Melissa, Melody, they all, created the whole goth prom.
Crowd.
That's another huge thing that I'm a big fan of. And they're just bringing some coolness to the city. And they're such big-hearted people. Yeah, I'm going to endorse them.
Okay.
I'm going to endorse them all day long.
All right. Ruthie Landelius, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Oh, it's been a pleasure.
And that concludes the episode. Thanks to Ruthie for the interview. You can learn more about her and her catering business at blackfigfood.com. Thanks also to Amarillo Angels, to Brick and Elm's The Brickley Awards, and to Panhandle Plains Historical Museum for supporting this podcast, and of course to Angelina Marie for editing every week. Thank you for listening. Hey Amarillo exists on a weekly basis because of listeners like you and the local people who support it financially through patreon.com/HeyAmarillo. Hey Amarillo's executive producers include Josh Wood, Corey Burns, Jason Burr, Katie Linger, Wes Reeves, Cindy Graham, Barbara and Jim Witten, and Patrick Burns. This has been episode 377. My name is Jason Boyette, and I'll see you next week.